ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जना शलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथं विठां तं सजीवं साद्वैतं साद्वधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। Shri Shri Navadvipa Para Pradeepa Sandipyamana Satato Bhuviya Chetastamo Hanti Hiyasya Yatnat Tam Kirtayama Prabhupada Devam Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Prachodita Shri Vyasadya Kosham Kushalam Kripalu Sanmlecha Vagdesha Chaye Dadadyas Tam Kirtyaman Prabhupada Devam Achadyate Yat Paratarka Drishya Govinda Murti Ujvala Bhaskarena Advaiti Kadyota Kulam Jagatyam Tam Kirtyamana Prabhupada Devam Yasyaiva Yadnena Purana Raja Ganga Mala Keshava Keli Hamsa Satstrotra Ratna Vahiti Haloke Tam Kirtyayama Prabhupada Devam Sri Radhika Krishna Padaravinde Sahasra Hritsu Shatamandareshu Aropayadyo Madhure Prativyam Tam Kirtyayama Prabhupada Devam Kaushal Yadair Yasya Sahasra Shastra Shastradi Varshai Pratihantyatehi Chanda Kalir Moha Chamurhatena Tam Kirtayama Prabhupada Devam Nana Lasad Gaura Sudha Prakasha Palashita Stapita Eva Yena Krishna Nuchinta Janasanga Vrikshas Tam Kirtayama Prabhupada Devam Yo nityada jivati daivikeshu nijasu shikshasu tu sanugami kripam buddhir nanda shuta shritatma tam kirtayama prabhupada devam nama om vishnu padaya krishna preshtaya bhutale srimate bhakti siddhanta saraswati tinamine Shri Varshabhana Videvi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Pravave Namaha Madhuryojvala Premadya Sri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Sri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudhapa Siddhanta Dvanta Harine Namo Gaura Kishoraya Sakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralamba Rasambhode Padambhujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sakchidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Sarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaura Virbhava Bomestvam Nirdesha Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tvishe Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratau Pangor Mama Manda Matirgati Matsarva Swapadambojao Radha Madana Mohana Divya Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadha Srimad Ratnagara Singhasanastao Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devao Prishtali Bhi Sevyamano Smarami Sriman Rasarasaram Bhi Vamshivata Tatastitaha Karshan Venu Swaner Gopir Gopinatha Shriyestunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vrindayai Tulsi Devyai Priyayai Keshavasya Cha Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Sri Nishinga Jai Nishinga Jai Jai Nishinga Pralada Desha Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Bringa Matsamo Nasti Papatma Naparadi Chakaschana Parihare Pilajjame Kimbruve Purushottama Yuvatinam Yatha Yuni Yunam Cha Yuvatau Yatha Mano Biramate Tadvan Mano Me Ramatam Tvai Humaus Kalita Paranam Umireva Valambanam Tvai Jata Paradhanam Tvameva Sharanam Prabho Govinda Vallabhe Radhe Prartaye Tvamaham Sada Tvariyam iti janatu Govindo mam tvaya saha Radhe Vrindavanadishe Karunamrita Vahani Kripaya Nijapadabja Dasyam Hayam Hridiyatam Vande Nandavajastrinam Padarinum Abhishnashaha Yasam Hari Gato Gitam Punati Bhuvanatrayam Namashrestam Manamapi Shachiputramatra Sarupam Shirupam Tasya Grajam Uruparim Maturim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaramoho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Adhadana Stridam Dante Idam Jache Puna Puna Srimad Rupa Padamboja Rajoham Syam Bhave Bhave Hantaya Madhura Bala Haridasa Varyo Yadrama Krishna Charana Sparasha Pramodaha Manam Tanoti Sahago Ganayostayoyat Panya Suyavasakandana Kandamulai Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya Glanir Bhavati Bharata Abhyutanam Adharmasya tadatmanam srajamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mami vaishyasi yuktvaivam atmanam aparayanaha sarvadharman parityaja mamekam sharanam raja hang twang sarva papebhyo mukshayishami masuchaha shushusho sharadhanasya vasugeva katharuchihi syanmahat sevaya vipra punyatirtha nishevanat shinvatam swakata krishna punyashravana kirtanaha hridyantaksto hibhadrani vidunoti suritsatam nashta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyutamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki tada rajastamo bhava kamalabhadayaschaye chaitaiter anavidham stitam sattve prasidati evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate vidyate hridaye granthis chijante sarva samshayaha shiyante chasya karmani drishtaye vatmanishvare. What is it? Now as the Lord Chaitanya verses. Vairagya Vijanija Bhakti Yoga Shiksharta Meka Purusha Purana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shariradhari Kripamburir Yastamaham Prabhade Kalam Nashtam Nijam Bhakti Yogam Ja Pradushkartam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nama Avirbhutas Tasya Pradara Vinde Gadam Gadam Liyatam Chitarbinga Nityanando Vajurdendor Vasudha Pranabalava Janavi Jivitapati Krishna Prema Pradapudu Padmavati Sutta Shriman Sachinandana Purvaja Bhavonmato Jagatrata Raktagora Kalevaram Chaitanya Krishna Chaitanya Gauranga Dvijanayaka Yatinam Dandinam Chaiva Nyasinam Chasharomani Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Gopremanande. Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Nitai Gauda Premanande, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki, Shri Harinam Mahamantra Ki, Shri Harinam Prabhu Ki, Go Premanande. Nitai Gauda Haribo, 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 Nitai Gauda Haribo. So, because we've been chanting Hare Krishna here in this spot, sincerely, the fruit of our efforts and struggles, whatever they may have been, is that Sri Mukunda Dato Prabhu and his good wife Sri Murti have visited us and are actually sitting in our midst right now in the back of the room. So would you please give them an extremely warm ISKCON of Silicon Valley welcome. Hare Krishna. It feels good to glorify real Vaishnavas, doesn't it? It's the goal of life. Thank you very much for coming to ISV and spending some time here with us. We look forward to it all year long. It is the real purpose of this organization, for us being here, is to have advanced devotees come and to for us to take their association. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Go Premanande Haribo. Look at Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text number 48. In this verse, Krishna is speaking, which is notable in and of itself. As Srila Rupa Goswami mentions in the Lakhu Bhagavatamrita, that the Bhagavad Gita is a very special book because it is spoken directly by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And once Achyutananda Maharaj asked Prabhupada if Bhagavad Gita was Shruti or Smriti, and he said it's both, because it came after the original Vedas, but it was spoken directly by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's something that intelligent people take advantage of, hearing the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. So let's chant this verse together. Yogastha kura karmani, responsively I mean. Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya. Move the cursor a little bit, please. Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva. Samatvam yoga uchate. It was adding an extra diacritical mark there. Yogastha kura karmani. Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya. Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva. Samatvam yoga uchate. Yogastaha. Equipoised. Look up the word, please. Kuru. Perform. Karmani. Your duties. Sangam. Attachment. Tyaktva. Giving up. Dhananjaya. O Arjuna. Siddhi asidhyaho. In success and failure. Samaha. Equipoised. Bhutva. Becoming. Samatvam. Equanimity. Yogaha. Yoga. Uchate is called.
Equipoise is a noun which is a balance of forces or interests, like this temporary equipoise of power. The origin is middle 17th century from equi, which means equal, and the noun poise. And then I looked up poise as well. So poise means graceful and elegant bearing in a person. And the origin is late Middle English in the sense of weight, from Old French poise, or pesser from an alteration of the Latin pensum, which also means weight, from the word pendere, which means to weigh. And from the early senses of weight and measure of weight arose the notion of equal weight or balance. So equipoise comes from there.
Thank you. Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. We can read together. Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. Purport. Krishna tells Arjuna that he should act in yoga. And what is that yoga? Yoga means to concentrate the mind upon the Supreme by controlling the ever-disturbing senses. And who is the Supreme? The Supreme is the Lord. And because he himself is telling Arjuna to fight, Arjuna has nothing to do with the results of the fight. Gain or victory are Krishna's concern. Arjuna is simply advised to act according to the dictation of Krishna. The following of Krishna's dictation is real yoga. And this is practiced in the process called Krishna consciousness. By Krishna consciousness only can one give up the sense of proprietorship. One has to become the servant of Krishna or the servant of Krishna. That is the right way to discharge duty in Krishna consciousness, which alone can help one to act in yoga. Arjuna is a Kshatriya, and as such, he is participating in the Varnashrama Dharma institution. It is said in the Vishnu Purana that in the Varnashrama Dharma, the whole aim is to satisfy Vishnu. No one should satisfy himself, as is the rule in the material world, but one should satisfy Krishna. So unless one satisfies Krishna, one cannot correctly observe the principles of Varnashrama Dharma. Indirectly, Arjuna was advised to act as Krishna told him. Also from a lecture that Prabhupada gave on this verse in 1966 in New York. The real meaning of yoga is to keep in touch with the Supreme. So you have to work from the platform of spiritual consciousness. The Lord doesn't say, you may stop work. He is God. He did not say to Arjuna, I am your friend. I shall supply what you need. You don't need to work. No, he did not say that. Rather, Arjuna was refusing to fight, and Krishna is inducing him to fight. On the spiritual platform, there is no question of stopping work, but we must work for the Supreme. You are not the doer. You are being ordered by the Lord to do it. There is an example that you take a rod and kill a snake. Now the rod is practically killing the snake, but actually the rod is not responsible because the man who has taken the rod is killing the snake. He is responsible for killing the snake, not the rod. So we have to become the rod in the hand of the Supreme. The Lord then assumes responsibility for the actions. So, in the first line of the purport, we hear that Krishna tells Arjuna that he should act in yoga. And this indicates a holistic understanding of the process of yoga. It's a way of conforming one's life to Krishna's desires, which is a good idea because Krishna's desires will come to pass anyway. And oftentimes people feel overwhelmed by the fact that they have a set of goals for their life, but then the world moves against their desires. What's that called? Suffering. Or sometimes people call reversal of fortune, because I may have my idea of what fortune is. I have my idea of what is valuable. But to act in yoga, one should understand, according to this verse, what's actually valuable for me, what is worthy of my attention, and where I should give my energy. And this is deceptively easier than it sounds, because, as Prabhupada would often point out, Krishna gives clear directions. Once in a conversation that Prabhupada had with a famous yogi who was inviting him to a conference, the yogi was indicating that people were coming from many different backgrounds to teach various philosophies related to the Bhagavad Gita, and some of them were known to be speculators to the point that where, while presenting Bhagavad Gita, they would say that there is no Krishna, but the impersonal sometimes manifests itself as Krishna and so forth. And when Prabhupada presented the idea that there are clear directions from Krishna, not only that, there's a clear definition of what Krishna is and who he is, and that Krishna is actually speaking the Bhagavad Gita. The yogi then said that people have their own ideas, and that actually the whole science of spirituality is mysterious. And Prabhupada said it's not mysterious. It's very clearly presented by Krishna himself in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he recommends that one follow his instruction. And Prabhupada went on to say that Krishna also says, think of me. And in order to do that, one has to have a clear idea of whom to think of. So it's not amorphous and it's not so mysterious. So when Krishna tells Arjuna that he should act in yoga, then the next question can be, what does that mean? And then Prabhupada asks the question, and what is that yoga? And here it is. Yoga means to concentrate the mind upon the Supreme by controlling the ever-disturbing senses. And one could live off that one sentence for the rest of one's life and have enough to do. And this is all-encompassing. Yoga means to concentrate the mind upon the Supreme by controlling the ever-disturbing senses. In the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that he tells Arjuna directly that he can go back out and fight and at the same time remember him. Tasmat sarvishu kaleshu mamanusmara yujyacha mayarpita manobuddhir mami vaishatya samshayaha. It took me a second to remember that verse, and then I remembered that it starts with tasmad, which means therefore, and he's referring to the few verses before that in which he had said, he meaning Krishna, that at the end of life, whatever one remembers, one will attain, whatever state of consciousness one's in. And in one of his purports, Prabhupada says that whatever subject matter one is attracted to when one leaves one's body. That was a very practical summarization for me, a summary of these two verses, Antakali chamameva mamanusmara yujyacha mayarpita mano buddhir mami vaishyatya samshayaha, which you see right in front of you there, 8.7, which says, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without a doubt. And before that, yang vapi smaran bhavam tajatyante kalevaram. You can all say, tam evaite konteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha, which means that whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. And then Krishna says, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu. Let's look at it. In translation, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. And here's the purport. This instruction to Arjuna is very important for all men engaged in material activities. The Lord does not say that one should give up his prescribed duties or engagements. One can continue them and at the same time think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. This will free one from material contamination and engage the mind and intelligence in Krishna. By chanting Krishna's names, one will be transferred to the supreme planet, Krishna Loka, without a doubt. yet another classic purport that is very encouraging as well. And then back to our verse for today. Yoga means to concentrate the mind upon the Supreme by controlling the ever-disturbing senses. So we've just received a truncated answer, or an essential answer, to how to do that in the verse Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu. And there's good reason for it as well. As Krishna says in the previous verses, one will be compelled by the state of one's consciousness to accept various conditions. Because of a varied material consciousness, we have to accept varied material conditions in the next life. So it behooves one, therefore, to control the ever-disturbing senses and to concentrate the mind on the Supreme. And this is what yoga means. So Krishna consciousness then means that one should go on with one's work, because that's required. One has to maintain one's body and mind. And at the same time, one has to continue to chant Hare Krishna. So that means, practically speaking, that wherever one lives, whatever situation one resides in at this particular time, one has to organize one's life so that every day one can complete the course of one's basic spiritual practice. And then one can move about the world, go about doing one's work, for instance, and remember Krishna at the same time. Of course, throughout the day, one can also chant Hare Krishna. But this essential practice that one does, especially in the morning time, is extremely important. Chanting the Mahamantra with attention is vitally important. And there's some work to be done in that, because the mind is described here. Of course, it's the center of all the senses, or it's called in one place the sense within. It's the one that organizes all the other senses. They're called the ever-disturbing senses. That's quite a tag. That's quite a compound word to be given. The ever-disturbing senses. So it's a known fact, because Krishna is stating it throughout the Bhagavad Gita, and yogis since time immemorial have described how the senses are ever disturbing, and sometimes even in very alarming ways. The poetry of Shankaracharya mentions that the senses are like highwaymen. That's pretty scary, because if you're driving down the highway minding your own business, and then someone diverts you from the road and then escorts you out of your car at gunpoint. So he said then my senses of highwaymen have then thrown me into a pit. And that's, the whole scenario is alarming, isn't it? And this is the way in which the senses are described. Here they're called ever-disturbing, but they can be even more vicious than that. In fact, one of my godbrothers once told me when we were discussing Maya, he said, if you're not careful, Maya will eviscerate you. Do you know what eviscerate means? You don't know? Okay, look it up. Maya will eviscerate you. Here's your word for the day. It's what Lord Nrsimhadev did to Hiranyakashipu. He eviscerated him. Okay, Shraddha? Evisceration. Please go ahead.
Evisceration is the removal of viscera, which is internal organs. especially those in the abdominal cavity.
Yeah, that happens. Evisceration happens. Cats catch mice and they eviscerate them. Big birds catch rodents and eviscerate. Lord Nrsingadev eviscerated Hiranyakashipu and so forth. So my godbrother was saying, from experience, he said, Maya, if you're not careful, will eviscerate you. And then he said, she'll wrap your entrails, that means what she pulled out of your abdominal cavity, around her walking stick as a trophy. This is spoken from his own realization, having had a encounter for some years with Maya. So ever-disturbing senses, it's highly recommended by Krishna. If one takes the trouble to control the ever-disturbing senses, Krishna says in the Gita, Shaknoti haivaya shodhum praksharira vimokshanat kama krodod bhavam begam sayukta sa sukhi nara. That before you leave the body, if you're able to come to the point of controlling desire and anger, then, he said, you'll become a happy human, a sukhi nara. Shaknoti haivaya shodhum praksharira. Before, praksharira means before you give up the body. Praksharira vimokshanat. Before you're liberated from this particular body. So we have a goal to control the ever-disturbing senses, and then to concentrate the mind on Krishna. And then Prabhupada said, and who is the Supreme? The Supreme is the Lord, and because he himself is telling Arjuna to fight, Arjuna has nothing to do with the results of this fight. So this is the other practical aspect of our practice of Krishna consciousness and the philosophy behind it, and that is that Krishna has given clear instructions, and if one simply tries to follow them, then one becomes immediately connected to Krishna and to the internal potency just by endeavoring to follow Krishna and his instructions. There are instructions by Krishna himself in the Bhagavad Gita. There are a lot of them. And there are also instructions in the Srimad Bhagavatam and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the most recent incarnation of Krishna, also gave very pointed instructions. So one can collect these and look at them very carefully and then make a conscious decision to follow them. And this is what's being advocated here. Prabhupada's advocating that by doing this, one will remain in Krishna consciousness. And it's quite feasible that one could go through the various phases of one's life doing this and attain complete success in Krishna consciousness. And by this I mean, as I mentioned before, organizing an essential spiritual practice, including especially chanting Hare Krishna with attention, and not being deviated by the mind. It takes some struggle to chant, especially japa. I know this because of my own experience, but also because anywhere I go in the world, it's the most frequently asked question or complaint. It's oftentimes it doesn't come as a question, it just comes as a complaint. And that is that I try to chant japa, but my mind's very disturbed. And I wonder if the people making this complaint have read Bhagavad Gita and seen that this is a complaint that Arjuna makes as well. They may find some help in commiserating with Arjuna's complaint as well. But if one practices and tries to hear the chanting and doesn't give up, because as the acharyas have pointed out, there are various offenses that one can commit while chanting Hare Krishna, which delay the effectiveness of the chanting. And one of the main things is inattention. When I say things, I mean one of the main things to be avoided is being inattentive. I mentioned this the other night. It's so good, I'm going to mention it again. I was using this in the last couple days, and that is while chanting, always remember that you're be aware that you're chanting. Did anybody try that since Sunday? Did it work? Because it's so simple, right? Yeah, it's very simple. If you chant, be aware that you're chanting. And also, I heard something very profound from the inimitable Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, who was mentioning that if you go and exercise, you may, for instance, he said, you might go to the gym and lift weights. But you go to the gym and you lift weights and then you decide that, well, it's so much trouble to lift weights, so I'll just move my arms around instead. He said, you won't really get the result of the exercise, of the weightlifting. He's like, so in a similar way, he was saying that one may then take this essential spiritual practice, but then not really give it any attention. I just do it to move through the activity, which of course is something that's cataloged as a hindrance to one's devotional practice by Rupa Goswami himself, who gave 6 items that one should avoid. One of them is to do a practice without thinking about it, or without trying to get a result, or without getting a result, which means that you're responsible in some way, that if you don't, that you really weren't putting your heart into it. And so the essential practice is chanting Hare Krishna with attention. And this can be done, even though it's difficult, it can be done as an exercise every day. And there's so much good that comes from that. Everything good comes from that, in fact. Everything good comes, for instance, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayat Yashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yadahaitukam. And that is by worshiping Krishna, one naturally gets knowledge and detachment. And this is these are valuable in helping one remain steady in the practice of devotional service, as mentioned in another verse in that same chapter, which is the first canto, second chapter, called Divinity and Divine Service, that says, Tachstradhana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pasyantyatmani chatmanam bhaktya shuta grihitaya. And that is that one becomes fortified by knowledge and detachment and is able to remain steady in the practice of devotional service, because it's possible in the endeavor to control the ever-disturbing senses, to know what the right thing is but not be able to do it. Isn't it possible? I was discussing that today with someone. In addiction, for instance, part of the scenario of the ever-disturbing senses is that they become caught on certain sense objects in this world. In fact, in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Hansa Avatar, in the 11th canto, Hansa Avatar describes how the sense objects, the subtle sense objects are embedded within the mind, and the mind is embedded within the subtle sense objects. In fact, we can see the whole scenario of the tiny living entity who gets trapped in the material world, in this big world, this big churning wheel, as Prahlad Maharaj describes it. Nishpidyamanam upakasha vibo prapannam. He says, I'm being crushed by this wheel of time. You can just imagine this big gear, all these gears moving. And he says, I don't want to get caught back in that. Kapila Dev describes how a living entity can have a moment of clarity within the womb of his mother. And in that moment of clarity, when the senses are still internalized. They haven't come out and engaged with their sense objects in the world. And then that living entity clearly sees that I'm not actually part of the world. As the Vedas say, asango hyayam purushaha, you actually have nothing to do with this world. But somehow or other I've become implicated in it. And in that moment of clarity, he sees that I've become trapped. I'm trapped here in the womb. But then he thinks and knows from previous experience, when I come out, I'm going to be captured again by the external entity. He has that clarity to understand that I'm in a situation now where I know what my situation is, but I'll forget as soon as I come out. And sure enough, Lord Kapila Dev describes how when the living entity is forced out of the womb through the birth channel, it's a traumatic experience. And a lot of the trauma is that the senses then become suddenly externalized to the world. And those senses and their sense objects become connected again, and one becomes bewildered. And so it's possible, even as one goes through one's life, to observe the ever-disturbing senses and see the ways in which they're forcing me to do things that I don't want to do. You feel a verse coming on right now, right? Which one do you feel coming on? Kamadinam katina katida palita durnideshas tesham jata mayina nakaruna natrapano pashanti utsrijaitanata yarupate samprata labda buddhis tamayata sharanam mam nyukshat madasye. That a person who comes to his or her senses, labda buddhi, I've gained my intelligence, sees that I've been serving bad masters. How many ways and for how long have I been serving the bad masters? And they never gave me time off, and they never gave me mercy. No matter how much I served them, it wasn't enough. That's bad masters, never grateful. So he says, no more. Now I've gained my intelligence, and now I'm approaching Krishna for personal service. I'm going to surrender to Krishna and serve him. So even in this life, one may see that I am a victim. I'm being victimized by the senses. It's very difficult to get out of that situation. One can become addicted to matter in various ways. It's very sticky. So one has to carefully control the senses and then go on chanting Hare Krishna. And by that process, one can get the mercy of the Lord. Krishna says in the Gita, what verse am I thinking of? What is the verse? Ragadvesha vimuktaisthu vishayan indriyaishcharan atmavashera videyatma prasadam arigachati. How about that? That's evidence that if you do your part to control the ever-disturbing senses and go on with the practice of devotional service, you can achieve the full mercy of the Lord. Let's look at it. Ragadvesha vimuktaisthu vishayan indriyaishcharan atmavashera videyatma prasadam arigachati. This is 264. Here we got it. Ragadvesha vimuktaisthu vishayan indrayaishcharan atmavasher videyatma prasadam arigachati. Brace yourself for the translation. But a person free from all attachment and aversion and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. That's worth looking into a little deeper, don't you think? 3 people think yes. Oh, all right, okay. It is already explained that one may externally control the senses by some artificial process, but unless the senses are engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is every chance of a fall. Although the person in full Krishna consciousness may apparently be on the sensual plane, because of his being Krishna conscious, he has no attachment to sensual activities. The Krishna conscious person is concerned only with the satisfaction of Krishna and nothing else. Therefore, he is transcendental to all attachment and detachment. That's revolutionary, that last statement. You're only going to hear that here. This coming through this line from Lord Chaitanya through Srila Prabhupada, you're going, let's hear it again. Although the person, am I there? Although the person in full Krishna consciousness may apparently be on the central plane because of his being Krishna conscious. No, one more up, please. I want to see the previous one. Is that it? The Krishna conscious person is concerned only with the satisfaction of Krishna and nothing else. Therefore, he is transcendental to all attachment and detachment. To all attachment and detachment. Yeah, I was talking to a devotee today whose service is counseling. And he counsels troubled youth, those who were not raised in very good families, that became mixed up in legal problems, but they're still underage. They're these called juvenile delinquents. They need help. They need mentorship and so forth, and he mentors them. That's his secular work. And he says he gets a lot of abuse from, like, verbal abuse, because they may not be so respectful. They may have a lot of issues they're dealing with. So he told me that he said it's an interesting combination, a balance, because Lord Chaitanya says that you should give respect to everyone and not expect any respect in return. So while he's doing his work, internally he's feeling that it's very important to not be offended by this, to consider, first of all, whether I'm respected or I'm not respected. It doesn't matter. It's only in relationship to the body. But at the same time, he has to be a strong father-like figure for these kids and mentor them. And he has to correct them, sometimes sternly, for bad behavior and things like that. And so we were just discussing, also that led me to think of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's speech on one of his Vyasa Puja days, when he was sitting on the Vyasasana, and he was saying that, what is this? He said, people may look and say, how is this humility? You're sitting on a big seat and everybody's worshiping you and giving you flowers. He said, yes, people are coming here to say, who is this, an animal, big animal in the zoo garden? But then he goes on to say that, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given the order that one must become a leader. One must take a leadership position. You have to become a guru in order to help spread the Krishna consciousness movement. So in that, one can see the essence of humility, which is mentioned in this purport, that one must adhere oneself to the order of Krishna. That's true humility. Whatever the consequences may be externally, one has to adhere to the instruction of Krishna and be loyal to that, no matter what that brings one. So the idea of a person being transcendental to all attachment and detachment lies in the essence of this verse, which means to find out what Krishna wants me to do, and then to follow that. And I'm not attached or detached. It is such a wonderful poetical verse about Vaishnavas and their attitude about life. Narayanak parak sarve nakutas chana bhibyati swarga parvarga narakeshu apituliarta darshinaha. And that is that the Vaishnavas see all the various conditions of this world, whether shubha, ashubha, whether they're auspicious or so-called inauspicious, or whether it's heaven or hell, so-called heaven or hell, as equal, because his or her only business is to follow the order of Krishna and to do service wherever one goes. In this, there's great shelter, because in the material world, there's no real shelter. I can never get quite comfortable here in the material world. As soon as I get some material facility, it causes me extra anxiety. That's a problem, because I might try for extra facility, and once I get it, it's a problem for me. And if I have lack of facility, that can also be a problem. But there's never a lack of service. And one can, even if one is restricted physically, one can even mentally go on serving. Where can you think of an example of that? Yes, Navina Nirada Prabhu. Here comes the mic in 7 seconds or less, or your money back.
Hare Krishna. It's mentioned in Upadeshamrita, Bhaktirasamrita Sindhu, that there was a Brahman who did not have any facility, but in his mind he would perform all the different functions of deity worship, including cooking and offering sweet rice. And then he somehow caught the attention of the Lord. And by this simple practice, he achieved perfection.
Can you tell the ending of the story?
Well,
of course, there's no end, but
he was thinking, offering in his mind sweet rice, but then he was second-guessing himself that maybe it is too hot to be offered, because sweet rice should be offered cold. So he would, in his mind, touch it with his finger, and then his finger burned. And his meditation broke, and he saw his real finger was really burned. And he was shocked. And Vishnu was smiling in the spiritual world, and Lakshmi Devi asked him, why are you smiling? So he sent for that Brahman. And I guess the story was recounted. And in this way he achieved the attention of the Lord.
Well done.
And perfection.
Thank you very much. What's one more that comes to mind? Yes, Pandit in the front row, second row.
I was remembering the pastimes of Nishingananda Brahmachari.
Oh.
Nishingananda from Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Yeah.
So there are two instances where he was serving in his meditation. One, when Lord Chaitanya was trying to go to Vrindavan, he was decorating the whole path in his mind, and he was seeing that Lord is actually stepping. He was making ponds, and he was putting flowers on the path so that it will be helpful for him to step over. But suddenly he found like he could not go beyond a certain point, and he understood by that Lord Chaitanya will not go to Vrindavan this time. He will stop at that particular point. I think it's Kanai Natshala, where he met Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami. And the second instance is he was offering the bhoga to the Jagannath, Lord Nrsimha, his Ishtadev, and Lord Chaitanya in a separate plates. And he was seeing that Lord Chaitanya is eating all the bhogas, which is also meant for like Jagannath and Nrsimhadev separately. He was eating all of them together. And he was again cooking because he thought like Jagannath and Nrsimha is not getting prasadam. Then Lord Chaitanya assured him, okay, I am non-different from them, so if I get, that's also same.
Thank you very much. Well done also. As well as when Krishna is born, Vasudeva is imprisoned by mental strength, gives cows in charity and so on. Also at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance, Advaita Acharya, Haridas Thakur, giving charity by mental strength. Don't try this at home. So there's there's two levels that we exist on, internally and externally. Rupa Goswami accounts for it in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and when he's giving the verse which describes devotional service. Which verse am I thinking of? What verse am I thinking of? Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmanya anavritam anukulyena krishna nushilaram. So the shil is the verb which is the essence of this verse, and it means a kind of cultivation, which is described in the Nectar Devotion. And there's an internal cultivation and an external cultivation. And working with one's senses to do all kinds of services. Prabhupada points out that the Goswamis of Vrindavan were engaged in writing books and doing excavation of holy places and so on, and also there's internal cultivation as well. So, in that kind of absorption, internally and externally, one is transcendental to all attachment or detachment. If Krishna wants, the devotee can do anything which is ordinarily undesirable, and if Krishna does not want, he shall not do that which he would have ordinarily done for his own satisfaction. There's safety in that. To just coordinate one's life, triangulate in such a way that one understands what is the order of Krishna, what is the wish of Krishna for me, how should I act? And if one endeavors to do that, moves through the different phases of one's life, and there will be difficult decisions to make. For instance, people all the time have to make decisions about their ordinary daily lives. Like what? Give me 3 examples of difficult decisions that you have to make in your life. Yes, Avantika, thank you. In the first phase of life, but already she can identify.
What you should eat.
Yeah, can you say more about that?
When you come home from school and you're hungry, you have to choose what you want to eat.
I see. It's a huge issue. You're absolutely right. No, I'm serious. It's a huge issue. It's really the main issue. If you look at any downtown area, you'll find there are mainly eateries down there. And if you go in a grocery store, there's mainly foodstuffs. I mean, people eat 3 times, sometimes 4 times a day. It's the main reason people make money is to try to get something to eat. And what you eat, and when you eat it, and how you eat it, and so forth. There are a lot of decisions to make around that. And just on that one issue, you can get some clear understanding about what to eat, when to eat. And if you just do that, Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes all these songs, beginning with my favorite song, Sharirat Vijajal. Actually, I stole that from Kripanidhi Prabhu because I was just in London and Kripamoy Prabhu, and he said, "Excuse me, I got to go sing my favorite bhajan now." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Sharira Vijajal." So Bhaktivinoda Thakur points out that by thinking carefully about what Krishna's order is in how to eat, if you just do that one thing, he says in one of his prayers, that what yogis try to achieve after 10,000 years, you'll achieve in one sitting. Because it's pleasing to Krishna, just the way you eat. So that's an instance of following Krishna's instruction, because you can eat any old thing. In fact, in one of his songs, Narottam Das Thakur identifies our sojourn in the material world by the weird things that we eat. He says all these different species of life, they eat weird things. Right? I mean, really strange things. I saw the temple cat the other day in Denver. He was playing around on the lawn. I thought, oh, that's cute. And I came over and I saw he had caught a mouse and was eviscerating the mouse. And then the cat looked at me like, aren't I cute? And I was thinking, that's not really that cute. and in one level I felt sorry for the soul in the cat's body, but on another level I was thinking she's doing her service. And whether it's, what is that? Attachment or detachment, because she's transcendental it's like, hey, Tushta Krishna told me to catch mice, that's what I do. But eating, that's a big thing. That's a decision one has to make, especially when you get home from school. What else?
Whether we want to criticize some devotee or...
Whether you should criticize somebody or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Shastra comes out and says, I mean, if you look at Gopal Bhatta, am I thinking, what? Raghunath Bhatta, who made a resolution not to criticize any Vaishnava for any reason. They're devotees. That's good enough for me, he said. And the Shastra says one should neither praise nor, the Smriti Shastra says one should neither praise nor criticize anyone, because the universe is working in a uniform way. What's the use? But then it says of the two, you can disregard the one about praising, and you can praise people if you like, but no need to criticize. So you could take that, you could study it and understand also, even just abandoning the propensity to criticize others is given as by Rupa Goswami as the symptom of the highest level of devotee. Nindadi shunya hridam ipsita sangalabhya. He says the tendency to criticize is no longer there. So you could do that. What are other decisions you have to make, Pri Kishori? Practical things.
Usually in our different stages of life, we come across different sanghas. So we have to decide who we will spend our time and associate with.
That's a big deal. What sangha you're going to be with. That's kind of redundant, but anyway. What sangha are you going to join? A lot of times people have issues about their work. Did I just ruin your whole day by bringing that up? And that's a big deal. Like, where am I going to work? Also, where am I going to live? This comes up a lot, doesn't it? Yeah, because should I live in India? Should I live in America? Should I move to Hawaii? I mean, there's all kinds of places you can go, and you try to carve out a place for yourself. And even when you say you're living in the Bay Area, and let's say you're dedicated to coming to ISKCON Silicon Valley, so where should I live now? Buy a tiny place that's closer to the temple, buy a bigger place that's farther away. I mean, there's a lot of decisions to make in your life, isn't it? I mean, it never ends either. I mean, it's part of living in the world of duality that there are so many choices, and it gets worse in Kali Yuga because everything's polarized, and there's a lot of unnecessary variety created in a consumer society as well. Even the kinds of choices you have to make just in buying some dental floss. Should I buy the name brand or the generic? And then it's very difficult. But the way in which this verse is describing the state of yoga is to align oneself with those who can inform us about what is the best thing to do for one's devotional service, and to study Shastra, and to observe those who are properly situated in devotional service, and then make the decisions based on that. And we may not know immediately what the outcome is going to be, but if we decide based on what's best for how can we come closest to following Krishna's instruction when we make these decisions. And you just keep making those decisions based on that, which isn't always so easy because it requires that one be constantly in touch with Krishna's instructions. Because there's a way that there's an enervating effect in this world. Krishna mentions it to Uddhava in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that even the transcendental teachings that get passed down over time become distorted because of the nature of the world. And of course, that's yoga nashta parantapa. This is why Krishna is re-speaking the Bhagavad Gita. So this, living in this state of yoga that's being described in this verse, making decisions based on what's best for one's service and what's most in line with what Krishna wants us to do, requires one to constantly refresh one's knowledge by hearing Bhagavad Gita. That's one thing. Also hearing any of the scriptures that we have, and observing the life of great acharyas. For instance, I notice all the time when Giriraj Maharaj is here, people ask practical questions like this. And you could find various ways to answer it from Shastra, but then Giriraj Maharaj will say, oh, I was there when Prabhupada said, you should do it like this. For instance, during Radhika Raman Prabhu's excellent seminar that he gave here, someone asked if Jiva Goswami had ever, if Mirabai had ever gone to have darshan of Jiva Goswami. And then there was some equivocation, and then Giriraj Maharaj raised his hand and he said, Prabhupada said that the Vaishnavacharyas don't refuse to meet with saintly women. They don't refuse to give them audience. And Prabhupada had been asked the same question, and he indicated that that the story about him meeting Mirabai meeting him, was probably true. And so we have this way of triangulating through life, hearing from the sadhus, and that's really an essential part of parampara too. You could guess, you could go through the Veda base and guess, make your best guess, or you could also take in, you could hear from somebody like Giriraj Maharaj who was there. I mean, you're still connected to the same generation of people who were there and got information from our Acharya, said, no, he liked it like this. And so that is one of the ways of staying in the state of yoga as described in this verse. And it definitely helps to control the senses as well, because it gives one it limits your choices, because you're making choices based on what is recommended by Scripture and by Krishna and by the sadhus and so forth. Sukeshwari.
Prabhu, I was just looking at the translation. It says regulative principles of freedom. What does that exactly mean?
Yeah, it's just like the Grahastha Vision team. You heard of them? Their motto sums it up. It says, strengthening the bonds that free us. When I first heard that, I said, that is amazing. Strengthening the bonds that free us. There's ways in which you may regulate your senses so that you actually are free to follow Krishna's instructions. For instance, if you don't follow the 4 regulative principles, you'll get trapped, and then you won't be able to follow them. It's just so many implications. If you misuse your senses and you don't follow the regulative principles, then you become obligated. You may say, okay, I'll just do it once, but that's not how it works. The whole material world's booby-trapped. You know what a booby-trap is? People would set up these little traps, like in wartime, so that if you step in the wrong place, a little loop would go around your leg and pull you up into a tree or something like that. So there's a way in which the material world is rigged in such a way that if you misuse your senses, then you become implicated. And then even if you say, okay, that's it, I don't want it anymore, the senses come back and say, no, I'm here again. I'm right here with you. And you're obligated. And then you won't have the wherewithal to actually freely practice devotional service. So this keeps us out of the maelstrom of the material world. So we'll take a few more reflections. Anything that you heard that stuck? Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. One of the purport, it mentioned that how Krishna conscious person is just concerned with the satisfaction of Krishna and nothing else, and he's not attached or detached. So I've seen so many times that devotees are like one example I found that they don't know how to make something related to computer, but then they learn overnight, and then learn, because even though they don't like, but they know that this is service, so let me do this thing. Or even like learning some software, learning some computers, and even though they don't like to do, but they do just for that, so that it serves Krishna, it serves the purpose of Krishna. So that's what I can see practically. They are just concerned, and that really makes meanings of these verses so practically to me.
Thank you. Very nice. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I like the point which you mentioned at the beginning of the class about if one takes a rod and kills a snake, then the rod doesn't get any blame. So similarly, we should be like the rod Prabhupada mentioned in the lecture 1966.
Yeah. Well, you are not the doer. You are being ordered by the Lord to do it. There is an example that you take a rod and kill a snake. Now, the rod is practically killing the snake, but actually the rod is not responsible because the man who has taken the rod is killing the snake. He is responsible for killing the snake, not the rod. So we have to become the rod in the hand of the Supreme. The Lord then assumes responsibility for the action. And leading into this, Prabhupada says, you are not the doer, you are being ordered by the Lord to do it. So be sure that when you're being the rod, that you've been ordered to do it also. Yes.
Hare Krishna. I like the point that there are so many varieties of options, choices in this world, but by reading scriptures and observing a life of acharyas, we can cut those.
Yeah, and you should also you take help from your spiritual master and your Shiksha gurus, because even you take Shastra, you can cherry pick from Shastra. So you have to triangulate, which means you take Guru Sadhu Shastra. There may be various ways in which you need local help to understand, how to apply the Shastra like that. So these three entities. 1, 2, 3.
I like the term wherein it said ever-disturbing senses. So yoga means to focus the mind on the Supreme and to control the ever-disturbing senses, and I learned that is the cause of my current entanglements. So thank you for sharing that and other sublime points on focusing on Krishna and pleasing Him.
Yeah, and it's good to keep that in mind too, that the senses are ever disturbing. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the scenario is given that somebody captures a wild animal and after some time thinks, oh, yeah, look, actually he's kind of cute. And leaves the cage open, doesn't lock it. And then the animal gets out and devours the so-called captor. So the senses, they can, like wild animals, people think they've tamed them, and then suddenly there's an incident, such and such got swallowed by their pet. So you have to be careful. And remember, they're ever disturbing. Yes? I had exactly the same thing, okay.
Very nice, fundamental whole lecture. Thank you, Maharaj. I like the analogy you gave, when you go to the gym and we just lift the arms without lifting the weight. That kind of resonated completely with my chanting.
I know, it's just so funny, just even to think of it. But it's important to remember, when we chant, if you do the heavy lifting, it's so hard to concentrate, isn't it? The mind wants to go all over the universe and not cooperate. But if you at least try and take shelter of the holy name by remembering that you're chanting and keep bringing your awareness back to the fact that you're chanting and not just let it go anywhere, you can actually develop it. And the rewards are indescribably great. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I just want to say that the whole point of chanting and having just focus on chanting and you will get everything, it's so real, because in my own life I've seen that, especially my relationships with people in general and at work, when I've chanted, I just don't do stupid things, which I just do, and I say things to people for no reason. I'm just in control. And the day goes so much better if it's done properly. So it's really, day-to-day headaches are just gone. Yeah.
Yes.
Helps.
This means that you can see the difference. The verse I quoted earlier, it said, by performing devotional service to Vasudeva, one gets knowledge and detachment. And one can see this for oneself in one's daily activities. That it becomes possible to control the senses. And Prabhupada's prescription was that Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu, in response to Krishna's instruction to always think of him, Prabhupada says, chant Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada, in a letter to Jayananda, he said, it's the same old advice, chant Hare Krishna. When I was in Italy, Jayadvaita Maharaj gave a class, and the devotee was asked a very complicated question. And Jayadvaita Maharaj kind of shrugged and he said, it's nothing new. He said, chant Hare Krishna, it's nothing new, as his instruction. Because there's so many other ways I might try to control my senses and so forth. And those, he even acknowledged that they can be valid ways. But the only way that it'll be ultimately effective is if there's descending mercy. And the way that's possible is so deceptively simple. And that is to worship the holy name. And how to worship the holy name? To give one's attention. That's the best one can ask while one's performing Vaidhi Bhakti. By giving one's attention to Krishna in his holy name, then there's descending grace, and then one gets a taste from that. And that taste allows one to control the senses. Vishaya vinivartante nirahara sadehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param jushvannavartate. If one can get a little inkling that there's something supreme in the holy name, even in that microsecond, is there such a thing? Yeah, microsecond. Millisecond? Yeah, microsecond is something else. Nanosecond. That is micro something. Just in that, even for a nanosecond, if one can hear the holy name, it gives one such a spiritual acumen, that communion with the holy name is so powerful. And on the other side, a great industrialist here in the Silicon Valley I met with recently, and he was telling me about the various companies that he started, and very successful person. And he was saying in one of the companies that he started, they had invented this product called GRAM. And I mean, all of you, I may be saying things that are really obvious, and I may be saying them wrong because I don't know what I'm talking about. But for the sake of this example, what struck me was that he said in the GRAM, there's a way in which you have to create these chips. You've heard of that, right? And they magnify the diagram of the chip. The chips are diagrammed before they're made by these machines, and the diagram gets magnified 1,000 times, so you can actually see it with the naked eye, because you can't see the chips with the naked eye, right? How am I doing so far? So what happened was they manufactured this GRAM, and the experts were making the diagrams and everything like that, and the product was rolled out, and it worked to some extent, but the memory was leaking out. And they lost, in opportunity cost, billions of dollars, because it didn't work. And so then he told me 5 years later, he just happened to pull the diagrams out and look at them again. Because in the heat of the moment, and it had been assigned to experts to look at it, and just then years later he looked at it, and in his investigation he found out that one of the gaps, there was a gap where there shouldn't have been a gap in the diagram by a thousandth of a micron. Thousandth of a micron, it was off. And that ruined the whole thing. The memory drained out. And I was thinking about how subtleties matter. And when we're chanting, if we allow our, those little gaps in our attention span, or to speak of big gaps, like, looking over and watching a movie or something, there's like so many things the mind was like, hey, let's not chant now, let's watch a movie. So many things that the mind can do, but we should try to close the gaps so our attention doesn't leak out. And if you can just do that, concentrate on that every day, and hear the holy name, commune with the holy name, then everything becomes possible. All mystic potencies are there. Yogeshvara, Yogeshvara. Krishna is the master of all mystic potencies. So this is the real yoga. Oh, Navina Prabhu.
Yeah, I like this as a title of today's class, how to close the gap.
Yeah.
Gap is also a company where people go and buy more stuff.
That's good.
So it's not that we want to close the gap down, but it's just closing the gaps in our own life.
That was brilliant. It's like you go to the gap and to kind of close a gap in your heart to get one more shirt or something like that, and you end up feeling it widen, right? Wow, thank you very much. It's beautiful. Yes?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you for such enlightening points, as always. I was really touched by the statement you made in the beginning, that the purpose of ISV is to have great souls come here, while you welcomed His Grace Mukundat Prabhu. So it was indicative of your humility as well as the great affectionate relationship you have with each other.
Thank you. Well, it's the root cause, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, of devotional service is association with advanced devotees. And one could take that as, in organizing a movement, one has to remember what actually makes it go. What actually makes it go? If one loses sight of that, or if one loses sight of what is the essential reason that I'm actually able to perform devotional service, then we may not be so effective. And remembering that association with advanced devotees is the root cause of devotional service. If we keep that in mind and we endeavor for that, that's something that one could pray for. It's a prayer that I often make before chanting, and that is that please give me the most elevated of association and the wherewithal to take advantage of it. Because you can have good association and not be able to take advantage. Harivamsha Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj, for a wonderful class. I was really struck by that verse, Shaknoti heva sodhum praksharira vimokshanat ityadi, because it's very important every day to kind of see what's the goal. I was just remembering several years back when we started the university program, alongside there was one more woman. She was doing a program mostly like social gathering, and when she saw our gathering she was astounded, and she came up to me and said, "What's the motivation? Why are you doing this? Is it just because of social connection?" And that has stuck over me throughout these years, that it's really important to check why we are in Krishna consciousness. So this Shaknoti ihaiva sodhum, that yes, just before you leave the body, it's good thing to become liberated. So I was just meditating on this. So thank you for bringing this kind of mantra for the day. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, while you were appreciating that verse from Bhagavad Gita, I was thinking how each verse is so deep in the Bhagavad Gita that if we keep it as a major feature of our life. If we go deeply within even one verse and pray on that verse and try to enter into the spirit of it, then we can remain always absorbed and on the proper path. Okay, we have on the internet? Question on the internet. Go ahead.
This is from Bhaktin Leslie. So she's saying that when a loved one dies, or a spouse or child, for example, the pain inside the human body, emotionally and even physically, is so great that all one can do is cry, grieve, and lament. And it seems only time can remove the pain. Moving forward in equipoise is not an easy task. So can you share some suggestions when we are in a situation where we are feeling such?
Yeah, thank you for such an important question, relevant to everybody. And if you are grieving, our hearts go out to you, and we offer our deepest condolences for any pain that you're feeling and your loss. There's a practical way in which, if you cut your arm, you're going to bleed, and it takes time for your arm to heal. And when you lose a loved one in the world, your subtle body essence is injured. You can feel it. I remember the experience when my mother was leaving the world, and someone asked me, "How are you doing?" I said, "I feel like somebody just beat me up. I just got cornered in an alley and somebody pummeled me for a while." That's how I felt. And there's practically no avoiding that, because, as I mentioned before, we're connected. We have three existences. We have the physical body, we have the subtle body, and we are the soul. We're encased in these other two. And when we lose a loved one, there's like an injury to the subtle body. And Leslie rightly said that practically, she said the only thing one can do is to tolerate. Now, toleration, of course, this is the main thing. Well, one of the main things that one can do is tolerate. And Prabhupada made the same point. Practically, toleration it sounds like nothing, but it's actually something in and of itself to tolerate. You have to be aware that if you tolerate, that over time you will heal. Just like when you cut, it's not the end of the world, you do heal. But it's not all that you can do. And you'll notice this throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, for instance. When Hiranyaka was killed, Hiranyakashipu, actually, after all, he's a covered devotee, but he went to his family to console them because of their loss, and he talked about self-realization. That really helps. And if you go through the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, you'll find where Krishna says, Utkramantam stitam vapi bunchanam va gunanvitam vimunanana pashyanti jnanachakshusa. That if you've studied the science, then you won't become bewildered when somebody leaves their body. You can see what's happening, actually. It doesn't mean that you won't feel that heaviness of heart, but it does mean that you'll know how to process it. And that through toleration, which means you give a little time and go through the grieving process, and also through hearing about self-realization, you heal very much more quickly. So those two things are important. First of all, not simply pushing it aside, because there is a way that we're connected to the world through the subtle body. Even Yudhishthira was disconsolate after the Kurukshetra battle. And how did he process it? Krishna took him to Bhishma Dev, said, tell him something. And when Vidura knew that the whole dynasty had a fratricidal war, and they had killed themselves at Prabhash when he met with Maitreya, but he inquired anyway. He said, so what about this? How are they doing? And he knew they were already deceased at that time. But Prabhupada said his inquiry was psychological. And if you notice, when something like that happens, you want to talk about it with somebody who can help you process it. So devotees do process. They know how to, through the understanding Krishna's instructions in the Bhagavad Gita. And that is part of the way in which we tolerate. And then over time, we become healed. So, we've gathered here. This is the central point of the Bay Area. This is the hub. And whatever sound vibration takes place here will then go out to the rest of Silicon Valley. So that's why we come to this exact central location, just like Naimasaranya, to again and again repeat the holy names and talk about self-realization. It's good for the whole Silicon Valley. And we have the ambition to go on doing this and to increase the vibration as much as possible and to purify it for the good of the world, following in the footsteps of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So on that note, I'm going to escape and go to Mexico. Literally, I'm leaving early in the morning for Mexico. I have to catch an early flight. And I'm leaving here in a slightly happy mood because Sri Mukunda Datta Prabhu and his exalted wife have come here. And so I leave you in the able hands of these great saints who I've heard will be here for a few months. How long are they staying? Until next Saturday. You mean this coming Saturday or? Next Saturday. So you have a lot of time to take advantage of this great association. So thank you very much, both of you, for coming here to ISKCON Silicon Valley. Please serve them, give them all facility, and give them your full attention, and open your hearts to these great souls. Go Premanande Haribo Vanchakalpataruvascha Kripasannabe Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Go Premanande Nitai Gauda Haribo 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 Nitai Gauda Haribo Nitai Gauda Haribo 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 Nitai Gauda Haribo.